Hello, this is Melanie Guralnick, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the March 3rd issue of the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The first article is Warmington. Toronto Synagogue being shot up, the latest in Iran war being felt in GTA, by Joe Warmington. Whether we want to admit it or not, the war in Iran is being felt here in the greater Toronto area. First, it was a boxing gym owned by an Iranian Canadian. Then, Jewish and Azerbaijani businesses had their windows shot at. Now a synagogue was targeted by bullets. At Temple Emmanuel on Old Colony Road at Harrison Road, not far from where Honey and Barry Sherman were murdered in 2017, just off Bayview Avenue, south of Highway 401, Toronto police say they responded to reports of gunshots being fired late Monday, and then found evidence of gunfire located on scene. There were no reported injuries, but the damage was done, and the message was sent. The anti-Semites and those who support Hamas and the clinging to power tyrannical forces in Iran can strike wherever they want. Attacks of this nature are another reflection of the hate and lawlessness that is gripping the Greater Toronto Area, said Councillor James Pasternak. These acts must be met with universal condemnation and an intergovernmental police response to bring civility back to the GTA. Nothing routine about this. Mostly, you hear crickets from political leaders on things like this. They treat it like it's routine. It's not routine. There is nothing normal or acceptable about violent lawlessness. This is a reflection of a societal failure and an ineffective response to the importing of world conflict zones into our streets and the violence it has caused, said Pasternak. Toronto police are taking it seriously. They have their hate crimes unit engaged on this one and have indicated they have stepped up security at all faith locations around the city that could be vulnerable. But they can't be everywhere, and it's very hard to protect every business. So many Jewish businesses have been vandalized. Just the day before this 10:49 p.m. shooting, Pasternak was out surveying another attack in his ward. I'm deeply concerned by the overnight shooting at Dufferin Street and Steeles Avenue that targeted several local businesses in our community, he posted on X. One of those times, those who are shooting out windows of businesses and places of worship are going to see a bullet ricochet and kill an innocent person. It has happened before. Toronto's Mayor Olivia Chow weighed in by saying on X, "We will not tolerate anti-Semitic hate in our city. Toronto police are investigating and will increase their presence in the area to keep the community and congregants safe." Goldy Gamari, a former MPP and a longtime advocate for Iran to be freed from the dictatorship that has oppressed the people for 47 years, says Canada will have to take the actual threat more seriously than we previously have. Canada has become a safe haven for Islamic regime terrorists, Gamari said in response to the Saliwan boxing gym in York Region being shot with 17 bullets Sunday morning. These Iranian-Canadian communities has been the target of these imported Islamic terrorists for 47 years. It's unfortunately become very common for Iranians who speak out against the terrorist Islamic regime occupying Iran to be the recipients of death threats or targeted by violence. She knows. She's been threatened herself. Many of the sleeper cells who support the Islamic Republic aren't even Iranian, including the violent pro-Hamas mobs who carry flags of the Islamic regime and pictures of Khamenei, Gamari said. Let me be very clear. Anyone who supports the terrorist Islamic regime occupying Iran is a terrorist and a serious threat to Canadian national security. For now, police are marking the shell casings and reviewing videos to see who may have been behind this latest shooting. This time, it was another synagogue. It won't matter if cops manage to catch them. The courts will give them bail right away, and it will be a rinse and repeat scenario. While the current war in Iran by Israel and the United States is front and center right now, it's not really new that there is targeting of Jewish sites by anti-Semitic actors. War or not, Toronto has become unrecognizable, where there are people who would put people's lives at risk because of another's religion. There is a picture of Councillor James Pasternak. He is standing outside of a business at Dufferin Street and Steeles Avenue, where the glass door has been completely shattered. You just see the back of him standing there looking at it, and another person is pointing towards the door, and there's orange cones around it. There is no photo credit given. That story was Warmington. Toronto synagogue being shot up, the latest in Iran war being felt in GTA, by Joe Warmington. The next story is Lily. Cracks in Carney's Liberal Party over Iran ignore Tehran's atrocities, by Brian Lilly. Mark Carney's initial statement on the American and Israeli strikes against Iran over the weekend was clear and decisive. He didn't equivocate as he called out Iran's leadership for human rights abuses, oppression, support of terror around the world, and their desire, opposed by most nations, to obtain nuclear weapons. Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security, Carney said in his statement. That statement appears to be causing trouble in liberal ranks, with some who believe it was too strong and too closely aligned with the United States, and who appear to draw a moral equivalency with Iran's death cult leadership and American President Donald Trump. Liberal MP calls strikes on Iran illegal. Canada cannot endorse the unilateral and illegal use of military force, the killing of civilians, or the kidnap and assassination of foreign heads of government, Liberal MP Will Greaves said in a video posted to social media over the weekend. His video was liked by other Liberal MPs, including Braden Clark, Stephen Guilbeault, Jeanette Lavac, Patrick Wheeler, Samir Zuberi, and Health Minister Marjorie Michael, or maybe it's Michelle, though a staffer told the Canadian press that was a mistake. Clearly, some Liberals don't like what Carney has to say, but liked what Greaves had to say. The first-time MP from Victoria warned against Canada, quote, sliding into automatic alignment with countries that we no longer trust and which do not have Canada's interests in mind. He acknowledged that the Iranian regime is problematic, but called on countries to honor their obligation to protect civilian life, ignoring Iran's attacks on own civilians and others. We all want civilian life to be protected, but let's be clear. At this point in the war, fewer civilians have been killed in Iran than during the street protests earlier this year, the ones that Iran's leaders decided to meet with brutal repression. And while Greaves, a political science professor before being elected, appeals to international law in calling these strikes illegal, what about Iran's illegal actions? Beyond mowing down their own citizens for protesting, this is the country and regime that shot down flight PS-752, killing 176 people, including 55 Canadian citizens, 30 permanent residents of Canada, and more than 50 others with direct ties to our country. This is also the same regime that brutally tortured and killed Canadian photojournalist Zara Kazemi in 2003. This is the same regime whose morality police beat 22-year-old Kurdish woman Masha Amini to death for not wearing her hijab properly. Iran has supported Russia, Hamas, and Hezbollah. MP Greaves says that no state has the right to wage aggressive war, but Iran was an active participant in several active wars, including Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Iran has been providing the deadly drones that Russia has used to strike deep into Ukrainian territory, and they have provided hundreds of short and medium-term missiles used to strike hospitals and schools. Beyond their support for Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, Iran bankrolled and supported Hamas with their October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, and their ongoing operations since. It is Iran that has helped terrorize the people of Lebanon and Israel with their support of Hezbollah. The interruption of international shipping, freedom of the seas, wasn't just from the Iranian Navy harassing neighboring Gulf states. It has also come from the Iranian-backed Houthis. Diplomatic solution not possible with regime. Greaves calls for a diplomatic solution, but how? Through United Nations sanctions that have been applied, but that Iran has evaded with help from Russia, China, and others? Through UN bodies, like the International Atomic Energy Agency, that Iran has toyed with for years? What people like Greaves and his fellow travelers in the left wing of the Liberal Party, in the NDP, and in academic circles fail to acknowledge is that Iran has been in flagrant violation of international law and faced no true consequences. Rushing to the diplomatic table now to find a, quote, peaceful solution that leaves the current oppressive regime in place with their nuclear and ballistic missile program in place would be a mistake. It would also be a betrayal of everything Canada stands for. Prime Minister Mark Carney made the right call on the weekend. He shouldn't waver now in the face of poorly thought-out opposition with his own party. That story was Lily. Cracks in Carney's Liberal Party over Iran ignore Tehran's atrocities, by Brian Lilly. The next story is Hunter. Sex torture killer Darren Scott Ray murdered boy who was 14. Now he's out, by Brad Hunter. Darren Pepin's mother was happy that Darren Scott Ray got what was coming to him. A life sentence for the heinous 1986 Toronto sex slaying of Darren, who was just 14. The less charitable among us would suggest the end of a rope would be a more fitting conclusion. But alas, in Canada, even for monsters, hope springs eternal. And now, unleashed upon Oshawa is Darren Scott Ray, child killer, sex maniac. Durham Regional Police took the increasingly common route on Monday of letting the public know that the now 65-year-old child killer was on a 72-hour unescorted temporary absence permit, or UTA. Lucky us! Ray went down on first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison for the 1986 Pepin slaying. 40 years later, the DRPS still peg Ray as a, quote, significant risk to the community. Normal folks would be forgiven for asking, WTF is this guy doing out? That's a good question asked repeatedly in this country. The answers are never satisfactory. What Darren Scott Ray did. On March 25, 1986, Darren Scott Ray, then 26, tortured and sodomized Darren Pepin, just 14, before strangling him to death in his apartment. The boy's body was then tossed in the garbage room of the high-rise. Teenagers, hormones raging, are the victims of many of these sorts of crimes. The Bendale High School student had argued with his father at their Kennedy Road apartment and stormed out. It was over chores, but it could have been anything. Such is life with a teenager. His final note to his father is utterly heartbreaking. Quote, Dad, have gone away because everyone accuses me of doing stuff that I did not do, and I've had enough of it. Well, goodbye. Talk to you later. P.S. You said if you don't like it, get out. So I did. I still love you. The teen had slept in an abandoned house the first night he ran away. The next day he ran into his killer, who he was slightly acquainted with. Ray gave Darren keys to his 10th floor McCowan Road apartment. Sure, you can crash here until you iron things out with your pops. Darren Pepin had fallen into a horrific trap from which there would be no escape and no tomorrows. His family learned that Darren's final hours were agonizing. Neighbors heard deep breathing, whimpering, and light screams. Ray claimed he was drunk and stoned. Don't blame me, man. There is a booking picture of Darren Scott from the Durham Regional Police Department. You just see a very extreme close-up of his face. He looks to be bald, but the top of his head is cut off. And he's not a very good-looking man. He's wearing glasses, he's got brown eyes, and is just kind of smirking into the camera. That story was Hunter. Sex torture killer Darren Scott Ray murdered boy, 14. Now He's Out, by Brad Hunter. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is 5 quotes that haunt the Maple Leafs as their season slips away, by Lance Hornby. Prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future. That was one of baseball legend Yogi Berra's famed oxymorons, and why the Maple Leafs are among pro sports teams who try to avoid the pitfalls of prognostication. Hey, we've regretted a few ourselves in the course of covering many seasons. But with 21 games to play and little hope of rising above a wild card playoff mosh pit, it's time to look back many months at the best laid plans of the Leafs via 5 fateful quotes. Number 1. Harsh side effects of DNA change. Quote, "There's some DNA that has to change in our team," said General Manager Brad Treliving. This was the main reason behind moving on from Mitch Marner. A mutual parting of the ways after yet another quiet playoff exit by the right winger and the team. What the GM underestimated was how much Marner mattered as fuel to first reach the playoffs. His 100 points, including power play panache, and his value defensively in tandem with Auston Matthews' quick stick. Treliving and coach Craig Berube never promised one player could or would replace Marner, but doing it by committee with pickups such as Matias Maccelli hasn't worked consistently either. We won't likely know until at least a year from now how a Leafs playoff campaign would unfold without Marner, while Mitch gets a chance to prove doubters wrong next month in Vegas. Number 2. Lack of a plan post-Shanahan. Quote, "My plan now is to not replace Brendan Shanahan. Whether Brad takes on a larger role is something that will be determined down the road. One of the best sounding boards Treliving can have is Craig, who won a cup in St. Louis. I'm a firm believer that the coach has to be more involved than just the day of the game and in the dressing room," MLSE CEO Keith Pelley said. We'll take Pelley at his word that his role in the post-Shanahan triumvirate was to leave all hockey-related decisions to hockey people. But Treliving already had made 2 costly bets on playoff ringers who couldn't get the team past the second round, Brandon Carlo and Scott Lofton, who took 2 first-round picks off the board. Defenseman Troy Stecher was a good add-off waivers, but all other tinkering since the start of the season failed to arrest their slide in the standings. If Berube has used his newfound influence, it has been to reinforce old-school values. Play heavy, dump, and chase, loyalty to veterans versus playing kids such as Easton Cohen. Trevelyan and Berube will have a say in any deadline deals that present themselves by this Friday afternoon. But beyond that, will one or both survive a change in direction by Pelly this summer to a new director of hockey operations? Number 3. Matthews' leadership leaves lots to be desired. Quote, I thought Auston Matthews grew quickly as a leader. You guys don't see it. The in-game things. During games where he's commanding the room. And he's not the only guy. We have a lot of good, strong leaders who don't have to wear an A or a C. That was said by Berube. The coach is correct. We aren't privy to what happens in planes, trains, and automobiles. We can only see that the undemonstrative Matthews prefers leading by example and keeps to himself more than any Leafs captain in recent memory. That's fine when he's on a Rocket Richard Trophy pace, lighting it up at the Olympics or letting lesser Leafs have the spotlight. But not when the team is about to miss the playoffs for the first time in 9 years, and he's in his second longest goal drought. It's good he got upset at himself and the team for the no-show against Ottawa on Saturday. But such public scolding and mea culpas of accountability have been far overdue from himself and the leadership group. Number 4. Too many mistakes on defense. Quote, there are going to be times throughout the year where we're not feeling that great. There will be games where we make a mistake, but both of us have to move forward. Park it, not let it accumulate. That was said by Brandon Carlo on himself and partner Morgan Rielly. This was envisioned as an ideal pairing. The stay-at-home Carlo taking care of business to let Rielly jump in the play. But turning 32 next week, Rielly has lost a step, does little as power play point man, and both have suffered when the Leafs are hemmed in. Toronto's last place ranking in shots allowed and 5-on-5 goals against can't be hung on this duo, of course, as Chris Tanev's absence created an adverse domino effect on the whole defense core. But Rielly and Carlo are far from finding their desired chemistry. Number 5. Big third line comes up small. Quote, love the size. They can go against any line in the league. Berube on a third line built around Nicholas Roy and Dakota Joshua. Roy, who was the consolation prize for losing Marner, has filled the bill, part of the conference's second-best penalty kill. But Joshua has struggled at times to find his role, not driving to the net enough or being overly intimidating before a lacerated kidney cost him almost 2 months. The coach tempered his expectations, noting a creative winger had to be part of the third unit mix. That has been a revolving door that included Michelli, Cohen, and when they were out of favor in the top 6, Bobby McMann and Matthew Knies. Knies got bigger in the off-season, but not necessarily faster. McMann replaced him on the first line, but his finish has slipped post-Olympics. That story was 5 quotes that haunt the Maple Leafs as their season slips away, by Lance Hornby. The next story is Carrie Underwood claps back after being booed on American Idol, by Mark Danielle. Carrie Underwood fired back at critics after she was booed during American Idol's Hollywood Week episode. During American Idol's Music City Takeover episode this week, Judge Underwood's criticism was met with jeers by fans in Nashville. They just like to boo me, Underwood, 42, said on Monday's episode, according to Us Weekly and Page 6. You guys are gonna boo me. You're gonna boo me, she told the audience after contestant Maura Ilderton performed an original song. It's coming. Bring it on. I love it. Your boos are feeding me. Underwood's fellow American Idol judge Luke Bryan leapt to her defense. She only won this. She knows, Brian said, chastising the crowd. You're not included in the discussions. The season 4 winner of American Idol then asked aloud why Brian wasn't getting abused for his musical assessments. Why don't they boo you? She wondered, prompting the country girl singer to reply, I don't know. I'm trying to get booed. What Underwood said to prompt boos. Underwood said Ilderton made a mistake by choosing to sing an original song. In a room like this, for you to bring an original song with that incredible band sitting behind you, twiddling their thumbs, I feel like this was a missed opportunity, she said. Singing original music is such a gamble at this stage in the competition. Don't waste the band, Underwood added in a post shared to X. Periods after each word, so very emphasized. Moore's voice and previous audition kept him in. I want to hear his original music after he's a big star. After clips from the episode showed Underwood getting an icy reception for her critiques about Ilderton, the Jesus Take the Wheel singer shrugged off her attackers. Boo me. I don't care. Laughing crying emoji. The judge clapped back on X. Underwood previously hinted that she got into it with spectators while filming in Nashville. Spoiler alert, I get booed a lot from our Hollywood Week audience, she tweeted on February 16, tagging the show. But on social media, Underwood's fans praised the 8-time Grammy winner for standing her ground. Quote, so thankful that you're an example of a strong female role model who shows girls to grandmas that you don't have to cower to the mob, one person wrote, with another calling the boos, quote, a badge of honor. Ilderton was eliminated, but Underwood said there were several hopefuls who also didn't make the cut as the competition narrowed the field to 30 contestants. This was such a huge cut. Hollywood's week was brutal, she wrote on X after Monday's episode. There are definitely some we lost that I will think about for a long, long time, but I'm confident about our top 30. We've got so much talent. Superstar promised to be kind as a judge. Last year, Underwood, who returned to the music competition series as a judge in 2025 after Katy Perry's exit, said that she wanted to be, quote, honest and constructive but still kind. I think that's the whole point, because people are coming in and, it's dreams. And you're a part of somebody's story from that moment on. So I think it's important to be honest, but I think it's also very important to be kind. So hopefully I can marry all of those together and be a good judge, she said during an appearance on the Today Show. In a separate interview with SiriusXM's The Highway last September, Underwood said she was critical because she wants everybody to learn. Sometimes I get in trouble from people, like, how dare she say that it wasn't perfect, she said. And I'm like, I just want everybody to learn, and that's part of it. And nobody wants to just hear that they're amazing all the time. Speaking to Postmedia in 2022, Underwood opened up on her own American Idol journey, which saw her winning the music competition series' 4th season in 2005 over runner-up Bo Bryce. It was pretty chaotic. There were about 7,000 people in one big building, and we were the last to go in. I say we because there was another girl trying out who I went with, Underwood recalled. We were the last section to go in and try out, and I was like, man, they've been listening to thousands of people singing all day long. They're probably just going to send us all home because they're tired. But I went in and they gave me a piece of paper that got me to the next level. I was so excited, and I had no idea, obviously, that it was going to lead to all of this. But I feel just as excited now, thinking about that day and thinking how differently things could have gone. I just feel grateful and thankful that I'm still here, and I'm still doing what I love in a way that just completely blows my mind. There is a picture of Carrie Underwood that was taken on the American Idol set. It was during the finale in 2005. And she is wearing a beautiful orange dress that is sleeveless. Her hair is blonde and kind of wavy. She's holding a microphone and holding her hands up towards the air, kind of like a gesture of like, wow. And there are many young people around her looking at her and clapping. Photo by Kevin Winter via Getty Images. That story was Carrie Underwood Claps Back After Being Booed on American Idol by Mark Danielle. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is Crash That Killed Colorado Quarterback Dominique Ponder, detailed in Dispatch Audio by Dan Balicki. Emergency dispatch audio from first responders in the accident involving University of Colorado Buffalo's quarterback Dominique Ponder has been released, detailing the scene of the deadly car crash. Ponder died at the age of 23 in a single car crash in Boulder, Colorado, early Sunday after losing control of the 2023 Tesla Model 3 he was driving, according to Colorado State Patrol. The crash occurred when the quarterback, who was heading west on Baseline Road, tried to take a curved right-hand turn but swerved the vehicle into the eastbound lane and plowed through a guardrail. The vehicle then struck an electrical line pole and rolled down into an embankment, where it burst into flames, police had said in a news release on Sunday. Speed was suspected to be a factor in the crash, police said. What did the dispatch audio say? According to the dispatch audio, which was obtained by the New York Post, a call initially came in at 3:01 a.m. regarding a transformer on fire in the area. The dispatcher added a few minutes later that witnesses called in about a glow above the scene, which the dispatcher said could be the result of a car on fire. You're responding to Baseline and Newland, in the area for what we now believe is going to be a car accident that has caused the transformer to blow, the dispatcher said. Several RPs advised that they can see a glow from it. We now have an update saying that the car itself is on fire, she confirmed shortly after. Roughly 10 minutes later, a first responder reported finding Ponder in the driver's seat of the car, but also said that the vehicle was not, in fact, on fire. There is one, so far, person in the driver's seat, he said. Car is not on fire. We're going to be attempting to extricate as well. A few minutes later, the firefighter said that Ponder was unconscious, not breathing, before adding, "This is going to be an obvious death." According to the Post, Ponder's body was taken to the Boulder County Coroner's Office for autopsy. The crash remains under investigation. What did Coach Deion Sanders say about Ponder? Colorado Buffaloes football head coach Deion Sanders announced the news of Ponder's death on social media, calling the QB one of his favorites. God, please comfort the Ponder family, friends, and loved ones, Sanders wrote. Dom was one of my favorites. He was loved, respected, and a born leader. Let's pray for all that knew him and had the opportunity to be in his presence. Lord, you're receiving a good one. Comfort us, Lord. Comfort us. The entire CU Athletics family is devastated at the tragic passing of Dominique Ponder. Colorado Athletic Director Fernando Lovo told ESPN in a statement. He epitomized the values of passion, enthusiasm, leadership, toughness, and intelligence that were revered by his teammates and coaches alike. Our hearts go out to his family and all of his teammates during this difficult time. The football program's official social media account also posted a tribute, writing that the team will honor his life, his spirit, and the light he brought to Boulder. What was Ponder's role on the team? Ponder began his college career at Bethune-Cookman University in Florida before transferring to Colorado, where he spent the past 2 seasons. The native of Opelika, Florida, served as a backup for the Buffaloes, playing in 2 games last season while recording 2 rushes and a pass attempt. Despite Ponder's tragic death, the team elected to take the field on Monday for its first scheduled spring practice after being given the option by Sanders to skip the session. Defensive back Ben Finiseth said that it was what Ponder would have wanted. "Everything that we're going to do moving forward is for him," Finiseth said. "It was tough, meeting together Sunday, everybody just knowing what happened. Coach Prime asked us if we wanted to work on Monday. We decided as a team Dom wouldn't miss the day. He wouldn't miss the day of workouts. That's what he would have wanted for us. He would have said, 'Life's got to move on. We've got championships to win, and we still have goals, and the clocks are still rolling.'" There is a really sweet picture of the Colorado Buffaloes QB Dominic Ponder. It's a black and white photo of him wearing his jersey. He's got curly black hair, a black goatee, and the sweetest face. Like, he's got this really cute smile, and he's holding a football. Photo courtesy of Colorado Buffaloes via X. That story was "Crash That Killed Colorado Quarterback Dominic Ponder," detailed in Dispatch Audio, by Dan Balicki. The next story is "Deadliest Catch" star Todd Meadows, 25, dies at sea, by Danette Wilford. Wow, there's a lot of bummer news today, sorry. Todd Meadows, who appeared as a deckhand on the Discovery Channel's hit show Deadliest Catch, has died at the age of 25. Captain Rick Shelford, who stars on the crab fishing reality series, took to Facebook to share devastating news about his crew's newest member. February 25, 2026 was the most tragic day in the history of the Aleutian Lady on the Bering Sea. "We lost our brother, Todd Meadows," Shelford began in his tribute. "Todd was the newest member of our crew. He quickly became family," he continued. "His love for fishing and his strong work ethic earned everyone's respect right away. His smile was contagious, and the sound of his laughter coming up the wheelhouse stairs or over the deckhailer is something we will carry with us always." Shelford noted, "Todd's love for his children, his family, and his life was evident in everything he did. He worked hard, loved deeply, and brought joy to those around him. Right now, our hearts are broken in a way that words can't fully express. We ask that you lift Todd's children and family in prayer and keep them in your thoughts as they face the days ahead without him." The post, which also featured several photos of Meadows on the job, added, "Todd will forever be part of this boat, this crew, and this brotherhood. Though we lost him far too soon, his legacy will live on through his children, and in every memory we carry of him. Rest easy, brother, till we meet again." A cause of death has not yet been released, but TMZ reported that Meadows died during a fishing-related incident while filming the show. A GoFundMe launched for Meadows' family also noted that the beloved father, son, brother, and friend left us far too soon while doing what he loved, crabbing out on Alaskan waters. The fundraising page reads, "He was a determined dad to 3 amazing little boys who were his entire world. Everything he did was for them, their smiles, their futures, and the memories they will carry with them." The GoFundMe has raised more than $26,000 as of Tuesday morning. Any donation, no matter the size, will go directly toward honoring his life and ensuring his boys are cared for in the way he would have wanted. A message on the fundraiser page reads, "If you are unable to give, please keep our family in your prayers and his name alive like he wanted. The Discovery Channel also released a statement telling TMZ, "We are deeply saddened by the tragic passing of Todd Meadows. This is a devastating loss, and our hearts are with his loved ones, his crewmates, and the entire fishing community during this incredibly difficult time." There is a picture of Todd Meadows in Alaska. He is wearing a very thick yellow jacket, long black gloves. He's got brown hair with a beard and mustache. And it looks like he's holding on to this big net and crab are spilling out of it. Photo credit goes to Captain Rick Shelford via Facebook. That story was The Deadliest Catch Star Todd Meadows, 25, Dies at Sea, by Danette Wilford. The next story is Nurse Had Sex with Patient, then Accused Him of Sexual Assault, by Brian Toey. A Wisconsin nurse is in jail after she had sex with a drug court patient and then falsely claimed he sexually assaulted her. Melissa Knutson pleaded guilty to misconduct in public office and obstructing an officer after she engaged in sex with the patient while she was working for the Monroe County Drug Court in 2022, the New York Post reported. When authorities became aware of the sex acts, she initially accused the patient of sexually assaulting her, prosecutors said. Knutson's job was to give the patient Vivitrol, a drug used to treat drug and alcohol dependence, and claimed she stayed quiet about the alleged assault for fear of him harming her or her family. However, text messages from the patient revealed that Knutson initiated the relationship and vowed to deny everything if they were caught. She later came clean about lying to avoid more consequences. Quote, "The harm caused by Miss Knutson was deep and significant. Not only did she violate the sacred trust between a patient and a nurse, but she compounded that by falsely accusing the patient of sexual assault," District Attorney Kevin Croninger said in a statement. "This situation is particularly egregious, given the patient in the situation was a participant in drug court." Embarrassment to nurses everywhere. Judge Paul Curran, who sentenced Knutson, called her conduct despicable and said she was an embarrassment to nurses everywhere, People.com reported. The judge further said he believed Knutson's expressed remorse was a mile wide and an inch deep. The harm caused by Ms. Knutson was deep and significant. Not only did she violate the sacred trust between a patient and a nurse, but she compounded that by falsely accusing the patient of sexual assault, Croninger said. "This situation is particularly egregious, given the patient in the situation was a participant in drug court." Okay, they said that again. Knutson was sentenced to 18 months in jail and 2 years of extended supervision. There is a picture of Wisconsin nurse Melissa Knutson. It's her booking picture, and she's standing in front of a white brick wall that has black marks for the different heights. And judging by this, she's about 5'8". She has really pretty long blonde hair, pretty face, brown eyes, and she definitely looks a little scared in this picture. Photo courtesy of Monroe County. That story was Nurse Had Sex with Patient, then Accused Him of Sex Assault, by Brian Toey. The next story is Edmonton Man, 19, Sought in 2 Deadly GTA Shootings, by Brad Hunter. Cops in the GTA are hunting 2 men in a pair of brazen, deadly daylight shootings that detectives believe were targeted. Toronto Police and York Regional Police announced Tuesday that they have issued Canada-wide arrest warrants for the suspected triggerman, 19-year-old Isaiah Thomas Badger of Edmonton. He is known to police. Detectives would not say whether his purpose for being in the GTA was to allegedly try to kill the 2 men on 2 different days. The shootings. The first shooting occurred just after 1 p.m. on January 26. at a commercial plaza in the area of Wings and Roantree Dairy Roads, south of Highway 7. York officers arrived to discover a man suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. The victim, 65-year-old Richmond Hill resident Sergio Lopez, died later in hospital. It is believed Lopez was targeted for death. The second slaying occurred on February 7, again around 3:30 p.m., in the parking lot of the Woodbine Shopping Center in Rexdale. Brampton resident Chandan Kumar Raja Nanda Kumar, 37, was found at the scene with gunshot wounds and died in hospital. Badger is wanted for first-degree murder in both cases. Also wanted for first-degree murder is 19-year-old Jacob, "Babyface" Wallace of Mississauga, who is believed to be the wheelman in the Lopez hit. Badger and Wallace are also wanted for arson, causing damage to property in the case. A black SUV believed to be involved in the shooting was later found set ablaze on Kipling Avenue, north of Woodbridge Avenue. Motive unknown. We don't have a motive. The connection is that they share a suspect. Detective Sergeant Sandra Arruda told reporters at a Tuesday news conference. Investigators believe that the pair are still hiding in the GTA. They should be considered armed and dangerous and not be approached. We are looking at all avenues, Arruda said. The accused men are encouraged to seek legal advice and surrender to police. Anyone with information is asked to contact the York Regional Police Homicide Unit at 1-866-876-5423, extension 7865, or email the Homicide Unit at homicide@yrp.ca. Anonymous tips can be sent to Crime Stoppers by calling 1-800-222-TIPS or visiting 1-800-222-TIPS.com. There is a headshot of 19-year-old Jacob Babyface Wallace. Wow, he looks like he could be in middle school. Very young looking, so the name is apropos. He's got brown curly hair that's a little bit mop-like, brown eyes, and just like a very sweet looking face. Doesn't match. Photo credit goes to YRP. That story was Edmonton Man, 19, Sought in 2 Deadly GTA Shootings by Brad Hunter. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next story is Ontario will continue time changes after BC Daylight Saving Decision by Spiro Papakowski. Most Ontario residents will continue to change their clocks twice a year, despite British Columbia formally ending the time shifts. BC Premier David Eby announced Monday that the province is adopting daylight savings time by shifting its clocks 1 hour ahead permanently this weekend to take advantage of later daylight. Every parent knows that changing clocks twice a year causes a significant amount of chaos on already busy lives. British Columbians have been clear that seasonal time changes do not work for them, Eby said in a statement adopting the change. This decision isn't just about clocks. It's about making life easier for families, reducing disruptions for businesses, and supporting a stable, thriving economy. Eby hopes that Pacific time zone states Washington, Oregon, California, and Nevada will also make the change permanent. I am hopeful that our American neighbors will soon join us in ending disruptive time changes, he said. This year, daylight savings time is set to kick in Sunday, when clocks shift from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. It will end on November 1, when the time is rolled back an hour at 2 a.m. The rest of the country will continue to shift an hour twice a year, except for Yukon, Saskatchewan, and some parts of Ontario and Quebec. Ontario on board with permanent change. Premier Doug Ford and his progressive conservative government are ready and willing to make daylight savings time a reality throughout the year for the province's residents. But that won't happen until two other jurisdictions follow suit. In 2020, the Ontario legislature passed Bill 214 that states Ontario will do away with daylight savings time if New York and Quebec do the same. That remains our position, a spokesperson said in an emailed statement Tuesday. That law has yet to come into force as the province waits for Quebec and New York to officially adopt daylight savings time year-round. Petition gathering signatures. Following news of BC move to the permanent change, an online petition urging the federal government to end the practice has reached 90,000 signatures. The petition, started by Brampton resident Irene Schoen, argues that shifting clocks twice a year poses serious health and safety concerns. Changing clocks twice a year is hazardous to your health, the appeal says. There are many studies showing that changing the clock and staying on daylight savings time negatively impacts our circadian rhythm, causes increases in strokes and heart attacks, impacts people with depression and seasonal affective disorder, and causes more car accidents. Schoen, who began the drive to end the time changes 7 years ago, advocated for not moving an hour forward to take advantage of extra evening light. I asked the Canadian government to finally stop daylight savings time and enact permanent standard time, the petition says. Even if one person is saved from having a stroke or heart attack, or is saved from a car accident, it's worth it. Support the health and safety of Canadians, and set an example for the rest of the world. Trump vowed end to time change. U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in on the debate over time changes following his election to a second term in the Oval Office. Quote, "The Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight saving time, which has a small but strong constituency, but shouldn't," he wrote on his Truth Social platform in December 2024. Daylight savings time is inconvenient and very costly to our nation. In 2022, the U.S. Senate advanced a plan to make daylight saving time permanent. That story was Ontario Will Continue Time Changes After BC Daylight Saving Decision by Spiro Papakoski. The next story is Roots Begins Strategic Review That Could Include Sale of Iconic Canadian Company by Jane Stevenson. Is Roots for sale? The iconic Canadian footwear, leather goods, clothing, and lifestyle company that was founded in 1973 has announced its board of directors initiated a strategic review to, quote, identify opportunities to maximize value for all shareholders. During this strategic review, the board will analyze and evaluate a range of alternatives, including but not limited to a sale of the company, said the company in a statement. Roots said it decided to publicly announce the strategic review as part of its value maximization strategy, while continuing to execute its current business plan. Financial and legal advisors hired. The company said it doesn't intend to disclose developments with respect to the strategic review, unless and until the board has approved a specific transaction or otherwise determines that disclosure is appropriate or required by law. As the strategic review proceeds, the company said the Roots management team, quote, remains dedicated to acting in the best interests of the company and to executing on its key objectives. Quote, Roots remains unwavering in its commitment to its customers, partners, and employees in its ongoing operations, they said. JP Morgan Securities Canada Inc. has been hired as its financial advisor, and Torys LLP as its legal advisor for the strategic review. Founders met at Algonquin Park in 1960s. Roots added that those hirings should not be viewed as an indication that any specific process or transaction will be pursued. The company said the strategic review won't necessarily result in any specific action, transaction, or agreement, or if a transaction is undertaken, as to its timing, completion, or terms. Roots describes itself as a lifestyle brand that started when its founders Michael Budman and Don Green met at summer camp in Algonquin Park in the 1960s. Roots has become a global brand with over 100 corporate retail stores in Canada, 2 U.S. stores, and an e-commerce platform, which is Roots.com, the company said. It also has more than 100 partner-operated stores in Asia and operates a dedicated Roots-branded storefront on Tmall.com in China. That story was Roots Begins Strategic Review That Could Include Sale of Iconic Canadian Company by Jane Stevenson. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the March 3rd issue of the Toronto Sun. Your reader has been Melanie Goralnik. Thank you for listening.